160 says, I'll take 170. Yes, sir. Look at me, sir. 17 bid, now go 18. 18, I'll take it. 18 bid, now go 19. 19, now is it? 19, fill it up, sir. Fill it up, sir. Go 2,000. 2,000 bid. At 2,000 bid, now like 219. About 100, about 2, I'll take it in. At 2,000, that's my bid. I'm going to 2 out of 2, sir. At 2,000, and gentlemen, the hammer goes up. I'm selling for the final time this evening. 2,000.
Good morning, all. My name is Charles Rwizi, the current 2023 South African National Auctioneer Championship. Obviously, we're sitting in Cape Town, trying to absorb everything, and it's all sinking in. Finally, it has happened, and very excited to be here. I got into the auction industry by chance. Obviously, I had a meeting with Peter Lovemore, the late Peter Lovemore, and Brian Makabarara in Zimbabwe, and they wrote me into auctioneering. So instead of going to an auction school as per se, we were then on more like an apprenticeship. And it started there, and it was tough times, obviously having to learn to speak a bit faster, learning to master your numbers, and learning to speak to people, and getting rid of stage fright. Well, I think it's the adrenaline at the most of things, and being, I suppose, as an auctioneer, the people term me as a frustrated pop singer. So instead of singing to a large crowd, you can sing to yourself and assume, or you say to yourself, I'm the best. And that's what we all aim at the end of the day. But yes, again, being on a platform where you can control the sale and make both the buyer and both the seller unhappy because the seller hasn't achieved like I say, the buyer hasn't got what they wanted at a low price, and the seller hasn't got the highest price. So you're in the middle where people are saying you unfair, but it gives us a lot of adrenaline, being able to control the sale. Being an auctioneer, I think it's the closing off of the sale. There's a lot of preparation that goes into any sale, and then the process of selling. But the biggest feeling is obviously closing off a successful sale, and both people are happy or unhappy, and we move on to the next lot that we're selling. Yes and no. I enjoy the freedom I have of being able to go across certain industries. As an auctioneer, we are fortunate enough that our bread is buttered on both sides. So where the money is, you tend to follow, if it's in real estate, if it's in livestock, if it's in vehicles, if it's in house disposals or liquidations, you're able to jump across. Whereas if you specialize and you are fixed to a certain facet, opening a business and then mastering it might take a bit of more commitment, whereas being a freelance auctioneer or an independent auctioneer, that gives me an advantage over my other peers. Well, without doubt, I think probably the greatest auctioneer to come out of Zimbabwe, more or less Southern Africa, the late Peter Lovemore. He was a great inspiration to me. His selling style, he was probably the first auctioneer who I saw selling bilingual. He sold in English and Shona to fit the crowd. And then I had Brian Makabarara. And then when I came across, I'm from Zimbabwe, per se. And when I came to South Africa, I met a few. I've met Andrew Miller. He's really been of great assistance. And my great friend who I've worked with since 1999, Gift Ngwenya, we've just pushed each other to boundaries that we didn't ever imagine. It started off, when I started off in the late 90s, it wasn't something that you thought would be a serious profession. We just did it to say we're doing it, and then it grows. So as you move to bigger and higher valuable assets, you start realizing the importance of an auctioneer, because the auction is the fairest platform for you to sell, because you get the right price for your item at that given time, what the market is determining. So I think that highlight of saying I'm able to achieve the price of an item at that given time is probably the highlight of my career. The challenges could be language, could be the type of clientele you're dealing with. So as an auctioneer, you're forced to adapt, and you have to adapt extremely fast to whoever you're selling to. And then the challenges are knowing your product. If you're selling a house, you need to sell it like you've lived in that house. If you're selling a vehicle, you sell the vehicle like you've driven that vehicle. And if you're selling thoroughbred horses, you need to know the breeding pedigree, you need to know the racing pedigree and the black type of that horse that you're selling, or that particular family. So those challenges, they are time constrained and time consuming, but it's all part of the job and they need to be done. To start with, you'll find when you start off as an auctioneer and you qualify, you just generalize. You're a general auctioneer. It's entirely up to you whether you want to specialize in terms of livestock, mining, vehicles, house disposal, liquidations. But fortunately, I never chose that route. I chose to remain an all-round auctioneer. And by that way, I'm able to move across certain industries without too much difficulty, because I'm not stuck or I'm not stagnant in one industry. Probably the proverbial jack of all trades and master of each. Because I've been around so many industries around the block, I'm able to move around and identify and be able to sell so many other assets and go on with the sale. The biggest accomplishment was definitely to be able to sell thoroughbred horses here in South Africa and Cape Town. It's always been an industry that's very niche, and I never saw myself going onto the podium. But thanks to some racing personalities, Grant Knowles, John Costa, and Brian Finch, they were able to rope me in, and I was able to start selling on the podium. And then that culminated in me selling at the Cape Yearling International Sales, which is probably the biggest sale that Cape Racing does. And yes, that's probably my biggest accomplishment, where you're dealing with very high-end value figures. And I was in my comfort zone. Well, it goes without saying, I'll allude to being a professional auctioneer. You want to be associated with an organization or an association that is recognized. And the SAIA, or South African Institute of Auctioneers, is South Africa's recognized professional governing body for auctioneers. So it makes so much sense as an auctioneer to join SAIA. So in the event that you are selling and you've got your SAIA accreditation, it carries more weight, it carries more credibility, and you'll find that there's certain designations that you need to achieve. You start off as an associate auctioneer, a candidate auctioneer. As you move up, having written your exams with experience, you go to associate auctioneer, and then once you've accumulated more experience in years, you now become a certified auctioneer. Bearing in mind that these come with experience, these come with having attained certain qualifications in terms of the book of knowledge and a test that you will done that's done in-house by SAIA. So it all goes inside. Whoever's an auctioneer, that's the way to go. Recognize yourself, get accredited to a professional body, and get your designation, and you are backed by the professionals in the industry.
The 2023 South African Auctioneering Champion, who's going to have the most amazing experience of going to the to the IAC Championship, all expenses paid, together with a check for 25,000 Rand. Would you please put your hands together for Charles Rwizi?